Welcome to part 3 on our lecture series on the Reformation. Today we're going to be covering the Swiss Reformation and the Anabaptists here on Learning the Social Sciences. Ulrich Zwingli was alive during the time of Martin Luther, and they're actually just a few years off from each other in terms of their own Reformation movements. Now, let's go into Switzerland a little bit, where Zwingli was from, so you can understand their setup since, well, this is kind of part of the Holy Roman Empire, but really not. They really have been independent for some period of time. So in the 16th century, Switzerland was a loose confederation of 13 self-governing states called cantons. Now, they had virtually become independent of the Holy Roman Empire back in 1499. And Ulrich Zwingli is an ordained priest in the city of Zurich. And Zurich is very close to the German border. Now, his preachings are going to cause a stir, a rumble among the people. However, when the church council voted whether or not they should keep him on as a priest in 1523, they voted to keep him on. And so he did continue to preach for reform. So for him, he wanted relics and images to be abolished. He also took all the paintings and decorations from his church out, and he had all the walls whitewashed. He wanted simplicity. He also was not a music man, and he even took the church organ out. So that's going to be a little split on Martin Luther, kind of the music man, versus Zwingli, the I don't want to hear that church organ anymore. Now, he also spoke out against monastery life, pilgrimages to sacred sites like Rome or to Jerusalem. He spoke out against the veneration of saints, clerical celibacy, that priests can't get married. And he said that the Pope's authority should be abolished. Now, Zwingli and Luther tried to unite their two movements. They met once, but they could not agree on everything, especially the Lord's Supper and how they should view it. To Luther, he held the Lord's Supper in a higher regard than Zwingli in terms of kind of the religious experience of it all. But we're not going to go into all the small points here. So they never unite their movements. Another thing that is a divider between the two is that Zwingli is fine with picking up his sword to fight for the spread of his movement, while Luther is not. In October 1531, a war broke out, and Zwingli is going to lose the battle. He's going to be routed, and to make sure that Zwingli's movement stops, the Catholic forces cut him to pieces. They burn his pieces, and then they throw his ashes into different rivers, so that the guy that said don't go and venerate saints or people, humans, would not be venerated. So they go and they do that. However, the movement doesn't necessarily die out. It's just going to kind of get sucked into the movement of another future French-Swiss reformer, Jean Calvin, which we'll get to in a moment. However, we're going to first stop with the Anabaptists. So the Anabaptists believe in adult baptism. At this period of time, it's popular to do baby baptism, especially among the Catholic Church. Man, you better hurry up and get that baby baptized. And so these people are saying you have to reach an age where you make the decision to be baptized. And although they were a growing number of Anabaptists in Europe, they have other unique characteristics and specifics within their religion and their group that is going to kind of keep them always on the outskirts of society, so that they're not going to really be accepted like Lutheranism is, or eventually Calvinism. Now, they wanted to return to the practice of the early church. Keep it simple, everybody. Simple services, simple everything. And all believers were equal for their teachings, and there was a complete separation of church and state. That's what they wanted. But that also means no military service. And taxes? Do you pay your taxes? They don't really want to pay their taxes. That's the issue. That is a big issue. We also have a very unique Anabaptist movement that happens in Munster, which, yeah. This is not representing the whole of the Anabaptist movement. So something that is very unique with the Anabaptists is they have these different pockets in the Netherlands and Germany, in various locations. And because they have these small pockets, you do have some different teachings with it. And there's going to be a very different teaching here in Munster. So there's an individual, Jan van Leyden, who is going to take over Munster. You can go watch videos on YouTube or go and read about this for more specifics. But he takes it over for a period of time. Now, he is somebody who went and got kind of a weird mass following. He would have a group of like young men along with himself running through the streets of Munster half dressed, yelling out biblical prophecies or just their teachings or other random things. And they spoke out against the Catholic officials that were there and the town officials. And eventually they take over the city of Munster and kick other people out. And then they go and make rules about marriage and kind of marry off the women of Munster to the followers of Jan. And things get very crazy. But because of how crazy and radical things get in the city, we have a moment in time where the Lutherans and Catholics come together in this time period to go and take out this movement in Munster. And they do. And Jan and followers are no more. So sad for like the women of the Munster that just kind of got taken in this movement and married off. And yeah, they're not going to make it through this. So yeah. No, but this is not the Anabaptist movement in large. We are going to have another individual, the Anabaptists, rise up, Menno Simons, in the Netherlands, who also spread the beliefs of a very simple life and to separate themselves from the world. And eventually they're going to become the Mennonites. And later we're going to have a breakoff group from them called the Amish. And so both the Mennonites and Amish are here in the United States and Canada. And you'll notice the difference between the Mennonites and the Amish because you can see a Mennonite on a plane. They are not the anti-tech group like the Amish are. Anyway, Mennonites go and move to the Americas, Lithuania, Poland. There is a group that tried to go to Russia, and we never heard what happened to them. So, that's not good. Jumping back to Switzerland, though, we have John Calvin. He is a second-generation Protestant reformer, and he fled to Switzerland for fear of death in France for his Protestant beliefs. Now, he is somebody who is also, like Luther, very well written and somebody with numerous different degrees, but he does have this belief that is coming to the table that is new. He believed in predestination, and people could only achieve salvation through faith alone. Now, this predestination part is the tricky part. He is basically believing that God has already kind of appointed what will happen for your life and your afterlife ahead of time. So that's predestination, summed up very simply. So he obviously is going to differ with Luther on several issues, including this predestination thought. With music, he goes on the Zwingli side, and the Lord's Supper, going more on the Zwingli side of things. In terms of Calvin's definition of predestination, I'm just going to use his own words here. The eternal decree of God, by which he determined with himself whatever he wished to happen with regard to every man. Not all are created on equal terms, but some are preordained to eternal life, others to eternal damnation, and accordingly, as each has been created for one or other of these ends, we say that he has been predestined to life or to death. Yeah. The textbook definition basically is that it is the teachings that all events have been allowed by God and deals with the kind of the fate of the individual soul, as I have kind of already mentioned. Now, Calvin is going to turn Geneva into a theocracy. In other words, the church is going to be running the government. And he creates this thing called the consistory. And this is a special body that is going around and enforcing moral discipline. So if you go get caught in a haystack with another individual and you're not married, then you could be killed. If this is adultery going on, you could be killed. But there's a first happening here. Both would be killed, the male and the female. Before, it would usually be the female that would be taken and killed. So now it's both. So I guess there's a certain level of equality here going on. Not the best outcome, but equality. Now, Calvinism is going to spread throughout France, the Netherlands, Scotland, and also show up in the Americas. He is going to have various followers go and help with the spread. The most noted is John Knox, who brings Calvinism to Scotland. And Geneva is going to become the new hub for the Reformation as Luther and Zwingli are no more. And people are going to start calling Geneva Protestant Rome. But Calvin doesn't just cause religious reform. He also causes an economic reform in Geneva. He gets them involved in the silk trade and in making clocks and printing. And this clock thing is very important because Calvin doesn't want you showing up late for church. And so he is the person that starts this concept of having the big town clocks, which, of course, if you travel to Europe, you're very much used to these big clocks like Big Ben. And Calvin is like, no, people have to start getting used to this. And so Calvin is this individual that starts to get Europe operating on like the minute, on time to show up to everything. And he's also going to check up on you if you don't show up to church. He's also the guy who goes around and has people walking around in church with the giant poking sticks. And in his church in Geneva, he cut some of the pew off so that you couldn't lean back. You would always have to sit straight up or you just fall right off. Which I don't even understand then how they had a poking stick person to make sure people weren't nodding off from his amazing 3 to 4 hour sermons with no music. But yeah, some people are talented. Anyway, 1536, Calvin's doctrine and theocratic rule was seen as a reign of terror for some and a haven for others. We have a Spanish Christian humanist, Miguel Severitas, who was burnt at the stake in Geneva due to a different view on theology with Calvin. Calvin later regretted having him killed. But yeah, it was very strict within Geneva. However, his movement is going to last, and there are a whole bunch of various Protestant denominations that are going to break off and still operate to this day. So that has been our lecture series on the Swiss Reformation and the Anabaptists. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.